on a very special debut episode of Tea Time with the Ghoul. Exvamon allegedly had a pedophile in the band. Now, before I elaborate, I want to start this video by saying that all information here will be labeled as alleged to protect the many little voices that either allegedly reached out to me with their stories, screenshots, voice messages, JPEGs, personal encounters, and all evidence of these alleged incidents and examples of misconduct. And the point of this video is not to harm or defame Exvamon as a whole. I'm not making it to convince you to unfollow all of their accounts. I don't need these dudes getting blacklisted or withheld from future opportunities, and I certainly don't want you, the viewer, to harass them in comment sections or DMs, rather if it's their socials or people who associated with them. I am simply making this video because I have always had the best interest for this band and the people in it, rather if it were Doug, Hunter, Jonah, Nate, before any of this incidents happen. Now, I would also like to quickly clarify that I am mostly coming after Nate with this, as I see him as one of the current and main problems with the band currently. Doug sure can be a little bit questionable at times with what he says and how he acts, but overall, solid dude. Hunter easily being the cleanest one, and you should go follow and support that guy. And Jonah, who seems to be a pretty cool dude, but I'm not gonna lie, I've been noticing Nate's shitty behavior kind of rubbing off on him as of recently. Again, with my experience with these dudes, I've spoken to Doug and Nate since around 2020 when the band was, just those two. It was just Nate and Doug. They were doing backyard shows. They were doing their own thing. Way before that, Nate was doing drum covers on his page a lot before, committing to a whole band. I've done multiple collaborations with the band, rather if it was the two shows we did at Shallow End, the Evil Wizard guitar cover that I did with Hunter, or even the recent January 31st Monsters of Metal shows at Strummers that I recorded audio and videos for all the bands, free of charge, mind you, for my own first personal ventures, getting involved more with my local California music scene. And I will also add, before going into the alleged encounters and everything, that these dudes do have good stuff on their resume. They're known for showing up around the scheduled load up times. They've backlined equipment before for other bands, and they recently donated a stage to a venue that didn't have one previously, and many other cool things. But even with those good deeds, there's a lot of trash that they littered in the shadows that haven't even been attempted to be relocated, destroyed, or even just hidden, And I've always found myself directly behind them, picking up after it, giving it a good look, and just being like, oh damn, and then just putting it in my back pocket for later. I would highly recommend you do not take any side while consuming the information that I'm giving you in this video. You shouldn't take my side, and you shouldn't take their side. I wish for you to form your own opinions from your own experiences and what was in your point of view, because I'm mostly just going to be talking about alleged activity. Because in the end, what I'm showing you is from what my experience were and the many other people who decided to reach out to me with even more alleged evidence and encounters. Everything said going forward are things I would have brought up to Nate in a 1v1 conversation, but that isn't going to be the case because he decided that it was much easier to remove me, block me, and just get rid of any possible respectable conversation or just any kind of closure. All things that could have really just been done behind the scenes, just me and him, but he never reached out for the amount of time that I gave him, and so now we're here. So again, this is all only going to be towards Nate, and Doug, Hunter, and Jonah are allegedly in the clear, so let's get into it. So first off, starting with patient 0, Robbie. Robbie was the bassist for Exvamon from allegedly December 9th, 2021 to July 17th, 2023, or about roughly 584 days. During his active time in the band, he was involved with inappropriate conversations, explicit content, and relationships with minors ranging from the ages of young chowders to 16 or even 18-year-olds fresh out of high school, while he was at the age of either 20 or 21 at the time, allegedly. Some of this behavior was seen and reported at shows, enclosed areas, even public parks, and other alleged locations. Out of all the other reasons for his removal I'm going to be listing here today, this is the main reason for him getting kicked out of the band. And I may or may not allegedly have knowledge or access to an audio recording of the whole conversation when Exvamon told him to attend what he thought was going to be a regular band practice, but ended up becoming about an alleged half-ish hour discussion before finally kicking him. He would later go on to be in a band called Ignosco, and currently in a band called Broken Pumpkins. Now, not Smashing Pumpkins, Broken Pumpkins. The Broken Pumpkins, to be specific. Congratulations on reaching 100 followers, by the way. Chamomile. There are other reported instances of Robbie also allegedly talking garbage on any band that he would share the stage with, rather if the sound didn't suit his taste or just them aesthetically. Would even go as far as to talk down on future replacement Stoess, on his struggles in his life, his musical journey, and just anything that wasn't up to his standards or liking at the current moment. He would just gas on him. Now, when you first meet Robbie, and I will say I have never met him personally, but still am familiar with the content he's made, his street credit, and his influence on Exvamon, rather if it was for the better or for the worst. So allegedly, he would introduce himself and be very chill at first, no issues for the first couple of moments you interact with him, but allegedly little cracks of his real self and thoughts would come out in the form of him either talking over you mid-conversation, rather if it was something he disagreed with halfway through your point, or if he just wants to talk about himself or just add something from, you know, his experiences. Or how about like the moment whenever you leave the man's sight, even though you thought, okay, this guy was okay, I had a reasonable conversation with him, no one said anything out of line or crazy stuff like that, only to hear maybe like a day or two or like a week or a month later he's just gassing on you and talking so much crap behind you, even though you thought you had a good encounter with him. And then he would still have the freaking audacity to still come back like things were buddy-buddy, like he wasn't talking smack on you on the streets. There are also allegedly numerous reports of him making physical threats to people looking to come to support the band Exvamon at the time, or any other project that he was in afterwards at these shows, rather if it was, again, the Barrel House or any other venues. One of these instances happening to Doug, where he would later report it and allegedly get Rob banned from the Barrel House and many other locations in the music scene. He would also allegedly claim higher positions of power in the band, rather if he said he was the manager, the booker, the guy who handles the money, or just any kind of made-up mob title. And he would also take credit for music that wasn't his. He would brag openly about profits made at the show, allegedly claiming making $100 a day from merch shells and other behind-the-scenes business. And even went as far as to steal and claim artwork that wasn't his from numerous artists. Now, throughout this little encounter with these artists, he would go as far as to allegedly tell these multiple artists that the artwork that they gave wasn't good enough, or that the band didn't like it, or just make up any kind of excuse letting him know that this artwork isn't going to be used or even going through the rest of the band, only for this artwork to be later used even before and after his time with the band. I would also like to add the detail that allegedly Exvamon did not know about this stolen artwork and just took Rob's words true. They thought, okay, this guy came up with a very simple, easy design that we can put on merch and sell. Again, this is them early on, maybe like a year or two in. And things were eventually cleared up with all of these artists, compensating them with some free merch, rather if it was a sweater, shorts, or stickers, or whatever they gave them at that time. And then proceeding to continue business with these artists for future merch designs or other accessories they wanted. Though I would like to mention at this time that Exvamon would allegedly be selling or giving out a lot of merch with these stolen designs on it before they knew, having around 4 giant plastic tubs filled with shorts, shirts, tank tops, hoodies, stickers, beanies, hats, sweaters, all ranging from, let's say, $3 allegedly to $30. Now, with the alleged amount of gigs played at the Barrel House and other locations that were in the local scene, along with information and numbers given to me by many sources, rather if they were selling or purchasing the merch allegedly, they were on average selling or giving away about maybe 5, if not up to the double digits amount of merch sold every show they played. Now again, around this time period, they were playing a lot of back-to-back shows allegedly on weekends or multiple days out of the week at consistent locations. Now, in my opinion, from the alleged numbers I have access to, in my opinion, I felt like they could have honestly financially compensated these artists With even like if it was just allegedly like $100 or something, they could have given them some kind of money aside from just being like, oh, here's a sweater with the design that, you know, was yours that we've been selling for who knows, months, weeks, whatever. But they ended up putting it towards ventures that will be discussed later. Back to the Robbie allegations, because his claims of being in a much higher position in the band than he actually was, this would go on for a while, and he would allegedly interfere, sabotage, and if not, commit other behind the scenes deals and conversations without the involvement of the rest of the guys, which would then later allegedly ruin a lot of ongoing contacts and opportunities for a band and just a lot of cleaning up in general. The only person I could allegedly hear Robbie treating well from multiple angles and sources is the singer of Exvamon and guitar player and vocalist of longtime family band Jinx. Shout out to Mama and Papa Jinx, coolest family I've met in the scene. When I was at the Monsters of Metal show, we shook hands, very welcoming and listening. They broke down what I kind of did behind the scenes, what I do in my life. They were the only ones really concerned with how I was going to be getting to the Raising Cane's and back, which was about like maybe a 6-8 mile distance, but I found my way and they were happy to see me get there. But when it came back to getting back to where I needed to go, they tried their best to look for a ride for me and even went as far as to offer to pay for an Uber for me, but I declined it. But either way, throughout my investigation and research, I have absolutely nothing but good things said about you, and you continue to be great and doing what's best for you. But Robbie would allegedly be known for attempting to recruit Jonah for singer for Exvamon for a pretty long period of time, along with Nate's father / supervisor of the business affairs, Robert. Now, since we're talking about two Roberts, because technically there's three to this story, allegedly not only is Robbie, the bass player, being accused of also anti-gay, anti-trans racist remarks against blacks, whites, and other minority races, reports of him claiming to allegedly be an old head and trying to understand why someone would be homosexual or transitioning, only to speak out on these groups of people in a very harmful and concerning way in moments after, rather if it was a public event like at allegedly an In-N-Out and other places, or even behind closed doors, things were said. Sometimes even getting other members or people around them to kind of bandwagon on these kinds of discriminatory, hateful convos, whether they meant it or not, but also straight up being heard, rather if it was from private spaces or eavesdropped conversation of him using slurs like and just any solid list of slurs that you can think of at a middle school level, allegedly. But he's not the only Rob guilty of this, because Nate's father, Robert, has allegedly been seen and reported to use similar words, primarily in conversations with the bandmates of Exvamon, accounts being mainly in private spaces, under his breath in venues, or even between car rides, allegedly. Now, obviously, I feel a certain kind of way of this because, but I will also say from my own experiences, taking that information previously stated away. Again, I've done 2 shows with Exvamon, and I came to one of them on my own merit. Robert has always given me some kind of bad vibe. Like, we've shook hands, we've done introductions, but like, we've never talked anywhere further than that, and I've never seen him talk to anybody else around these venue spaces. Now, don't get me wrong, he's an older dude, and these venues are filled with like 20-something-year-olds, or again, people not really around his age to make sense of making connections with. But at the same time, it's like you can at least, I don't know, like compliment a band out in the open, or small talk with somebody, ask them if they're enjoying the show, or at least show yourself being more remotely positive rather than just kind of standing there looking like you could care less about where you are at the current moment. There were accounts and instances of other bandmates and other people that also get similar vibes off of him, and a lot of shadow sources tell me that he also bandwagons on shit talking on a lot of the bands that shared the stage with Exvamon. And it's not even a matter of giving you a list, because it's literally, from what I've been told allegedly, that any band that's ever shared the stage with Exvamon, like, you've been shit on before. Even my band at Gwynplaine, they apparently really did not like our aesthetics and a little bit of our sound, and were very vocal about that behind the scenes. Even though every time I've asked them how we did, like, they said it was great, it was probably one of the better shows they did, and blahdy-blahdy-blue. But yeah, back to Robert. Again, he would only really interact with either the band of Exvamon, or he would talk to venue owners or other promoters, or even just bands that he saw as, I guess, worthy or good enough to be around this little circle group. One more thing to also add about Robbie, the bassist, is that he has been reported to allegedly hire people at a sandwich shop for maybe about 2 to 4 hour shifts, and would withhold pay for many days after the promised paid period. Though he would eventually give the money, he has been allegedly allegedly, you know, accused of just ghosting you or only contacting you when it's convenient to you, but whenever you need something from him, he just does not exist or is not there. So in conclusion, Robbie is allegedly seen as a predator, a habitual liar, an enemy to minority groups, a thief, a manipulator, and overall two-faced lying bastard that had way too long of a stay in any of the projects that he was in. I would also like to add that all of the alleged information provided previously, as terrible as it is, and I would like to also say there may or may not be even more evidence that I can or can't provide because I see it as allegedly overkill. But even all the stuff mentioned previously is not the reasons I have a grudge with Exvamon, mainly Nate, because you have to remember this happened so early on in Exvamon's career, and sure, it left a pretty bad ketchup stain on it, but sometimes like stuff like that happens. Like sometimes you meet somebody you thought was super cool at the moment, you were strangers and then became buds, but then it comes out that these dudes are actually not your friend, a total asshole. They're cheating you, they're stealing from you, they're doing a bunch of other crazy things behind your back. And again, stuff like that happens and you shouldn't be held accountable for that. I mean, otherwise everyone would hate Daryl Dixon for siding with those bikers after he left Rick's group. And that's also not to mention that, again, I've been in similar situations with that because there was a time where I was in a side project with German Rodriguez before all the crazy shit about him came out. And like, though I was already like planning on like leaving this dude because he was just an immature and just not very committed dude in general. I mean, like really bad commitment issues, rather if it was his relationships, friendships, or even just like business practices between bands. Though he would be super enthusiastic to wanting to join your band, he would just end up leaving on his own merit and way just because, again, commitment issues. So my point being is that there's always more to a story, and it really is never just as black and white as that, because that's not a mentality I think we should have at this scene where it's like you see a person associate with someone just at one time and then all of a sudden they're just enemy number one. They should not be trusted. You should hide their kids from you. They sleep on a pile of bones. That's not what it should be. I personally believe that we are all humans. We make mistakes, and as long as you seek the path of righteousness, treat people how you want to be treated later on, and just learn from your mistakes, no one will hold you accountable for stuff like that anymore, and we'll just move on and see you for who you are now rather than who you were then. And a lot of this trash that I picked up after Rob's departure, I would have honestly just dropped it and literally just, you know, been done with it, because I would have thought that Robert's negative influence would have left with him the moment he got dropped from the band, but that ends up not being the case, because even after all of that kind of stuff, not only did Exvamon, mostly Nate, want to hide everything that was going down behind the scenes with Robbie while he was in the band, from, again, the lying, the cheating, the thievery, the predatory behavior. After all of that kind of stuff, they still tried to hide the fact on why he got kicked out and lied about it, but would even also give him a fair send-off post on July 17th, 2023. And when that post dropped, first things first, the comment section was still open and up, and you already had maybe a good handful of people seeing this post and just being very vocal on the fact that Rob was finally out of the band, asking questions like why it took so long, and even coming out with their own experiences on like, he was doing this, this, and this, you knew it, why are you barely kicking him out now? Because again, the dude was in the band for 584 active days, and obviously, you know, he wasn't just in a practice room for that amount of days. I mean, he had to find some time to go out to parks to befriend the adolescents, so, you know, beats me, allegedly. And later on, during that post being up, and I mean like on the same day, Nate would go on to turn off the comments and just never talk about it again. Now, you think that everything would have been cleared up by that time and all of the mess and bad stuff that was happening because of Robbie's influence would have stopped, but no, it keeps escalating from there. Which is where I follow up with the question that goes into the next segment of this video. Why did the alleged predator abuser get a proper send-off, time, and influence with the band, even with all the stuff that you knew about, but when it came time to kick Stoess out for being too broke to pay the insane fees you manifested with your terrible business practices and overall unempathetic decisions towards him, this was the last thing that you posted on the page about him, and you never heard a whisper or anything about Stoess not being in the band anymore, or even the reason why you kicked him out. The only reason we really got was through a comment Nate made where he said that Stoess was not committed enough in the band and couldn't sell enough tickets, but he would later go on to delete that comment, allegedly. Now again, no story, no reel, no post, no thank you, no respectful send-off, as shown to Rob, and he's still on that page currently right now. Like, just nothing. Like, he got nothing, and the band continued their business as usual. So going into the Stoess arc, so after Robbie's official departure post being made, behind the scenes around July 12th, 2023, Doug would reach out to Stoess, whose contact information he got allegedly because Stoess would follow the band page after being at one of the first shows he's ever went to, and they saw that he played bass even though he didn't have much time with the instrument. He was maybe about half a year, maybe 3 months in at this time allegedly, and there wasn't even that much content on his bass playing besides maybe for like one okay video, and would meet him in an In-N-Out to allegedly discuss about getting Stoess in the band. Now, I would also like to add this little detail. Allegedly, the group didn't offer to pay for Stoess's food when Stoess mentioned that he couldn't purchase anything, even though, like I said, they were meeting at an In-N-Out, and you would expect someone of him to pay food, but he didn't have money or wasn't in a good spot to comfortably pay $6 for a burger, and was just open about, you know, being good off the food, but no one in that band offered to buy Stoess anything. Now, obviously, this isn't anything completely monstrous or unreasonable. Man says he's not hungry. He doesn't have money to pay for food. You know, if you don't buy him anything, you know, it's not bad. But like, when this is like your first introduction to someone you're trying to integrate to the band, or even just bandmates or friends in general, dude, you would try your best to get the dude involved, rather if you just gotta, you know, throw $6 for a burger for him, or buy him a drink, buy him a side of fries, share your food at least, you know? But again, that's just me. Now, during this discussion on getting Stoess involved and initiated into Exvamon, they would allegedly mainly suggest that they are mostly looking for him to contribute financially than what he could bring musically, aesthetically, or artistically. Allegedly being treated and seen more as an extra wallet rather than the bass player of the band, which will be shown later. There was allegedly no real audition held for Stoess to see if he can actually be a good fit and adversary in the band, and mostly what they just did is they kind of just threw him in a room with them, and they just kind of showed him the bass parts, which were really just the guitar parts, but just translated onto bass, and would do this all the way up into his first show, which I believe is around August. Now, it seems like they didn't also give Stoess a lot of leeway in the bass parts he was writing during this period of him learning the songs before getting on stage with them, and any kind of influence or adjustment he would make to the bass parts would instantly be shut down, and they would just basically tell him, hey, no, you learn what we're telling you to learn. You know, the very thing that us bassists and musicians stereotype to absolute oblivion when it comes to the treatment of bass players. Like, it happened in this band, allegedly. Now, Stoess was allegedly very vocal about many things, such as ideas for covers that Exvamon would flat out just say no to unless it was something they wanted to do to get closer to other acts, or just, you know, something they liked in general and it was of their interest. So they were like, oh, we're gonna do this cover because I like it, you know, and you're gonna learn it because now we all want to learn it, right? Even though these requests Stoess made weren't super eccentric or something out of the ordinary for the list of influences that Exvamon might have, it was mostly just old school thrash stuff, you know, like Metallica, Megadeth, Pantera, and many other artists that you can probably pull out of your ass that were in the realm of what these guys could play and are into and familiar with, because like mentioned previously, Nate used to do a lot of Pantera covers and a lot of metal covers and stuff on drums and stuff before straight up committing to Exvamon, so it's like, you could have done it. It was also allegedly voiced that even if they weren't to play this at shows, they can at least do it in practice and rehearsal spaces just so they can all kind of get together and connect as a band and like learn these songs and add their own little inputs and just have fun overall. But every time he was just denied and shut down, and they just told him, hey, you gotta learn what we want you to learn, you know? Now, continuing with the allegations against Exvamon's business practices as a buy-on band, because that's what they are, you're a buy-on band. Stoess was reportedly allegedly pay about between $153.50 to $503.50 per month for travel fees, studio time, tickets that were unsold, damaged, or just needed to be purchased because they failed to sell the minimum of 33 tickets. Now, each of these tickets allegedly costing between $23.50 and $33.50 per ticket, which would end up being pretty frequently allegedly, because not every show Exvamon threw every weekend would have great turnouts, and again, failure to do so would get them blacklisted from venues and other promoters in the scene. So aside from these fees, They would also allegedly pay about $153.50 for group pictures that Nate and other members felt were necessary purchases, and would also buy onto spots for shows in the Bay Area or other locations outside their home turf. Some gigs costing around allegedly $803.50 just to make it happen. Now, since Stoess himself doesn't come from a good background, has many bills behind the scenes, and unexpected fees that just happen because, you know, things can happen. Like, you don't have control of everything around you. And we all have some form of financial setbacks, like once a month or every so often. He couldn't catch up with the payments to the point where Exvamon, mainly Nate, put him on monthly payment plans to make up for things that Stoess couldn't sell, or for things that he never asked for but was told to financially contribute to, such as allegedly a wireless transmitter system, which came out to maybe around $653.50. These are estimated numbers. A pedal board that would later get stolen, around $703.50. Studio recordings in Sacramento with another Robert. Now, each of these songs allegedly cost around $503.50 per song, and the songs being recorded were Voyage Unknown, Hero Arise, Life Divine, and Duel of the Blah 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 Blah, along with many other things labeled as worthy investments to Nate. But to be nice and just give it a flat number, let's say they paid around $1,503.50 for these 3 recordings, 2 of them already released currently. One of these alleged incidents, Stoess was seen communicating to Nate directly that he was going to be short about $23.50, and that he would have to get the rest to him later, after being given less hours for his job that he recently started, and was having last minute expenses to cover at home. So instead of, you know, Nate being cool with it, just being like, you know, it's just only $20, just give me the rest and we'll do the stuff later, not only did he lashed out on Stoess for this, but he would also punish him by throwing even more money on top of what he already owed and making him pay more per pay period. And again, just to say it, like, having your bassist or any member of your band on monthly payment plans is ridiculous. Claiming that Stoess had attitude and would talk to him in like some sort of way that was just, you know, foul, you know, all over $23.50. And again, like, Nate and everyone who was close to him knew he didn't really have a good life back at home, and he wasn't really in a good financial spot like the rest of the bands. So it's crazy that you're making these claims and you're asking this much from someone who already has so little, you know what I mean? And there was apparently no room for any kind of exceptions made for him, rather if he was $1 short or tree fitty short. Now, later on, Nate would go on to allegedly request custom artwork for their album that would allegedly cost around $1,300.50, and that all of the band members had to contribute a good sum of money to pay off this piece of art. I would also like to mention that it is alleged that Stoess, who paid for this art and gave the money to them. I would also like to mention that it is alleged that Stoess, who did give his share of the money to pay off for the artwork, rather if it was full or half before or after he joined the band, did not have any say about what could be on the artwork or putting his own inputs and stuff, as the JPEG was being shown back and forth to band members to see if it was cool, along with other members allegedly not having much say in it besides Nate. Lastly, there was an account where they would sleep in an RV after the recording sessions in Sacramento to save costs on stuff like hotels or finding somewhere else to sleep. Everyone was allegedly expected to be bringing their own blankets, comforts, and all that kind of stuff, but Stoess really didn't have any of that stuff or anything really worthy to bring, and no one brought him anything for that stuff. And to add a cherry on the top, he had to literally sleep in a narrow corner of the RV right next to the bathroom, where other bandmates allegedly would accidentally step on him when passing the restroom or anything, not really questioning whether if he was uncomfortable or even okay. They would just, you know, walk it. Another detail to add, early on when Stoess was working for the band at merch tables, possibly before or after playing shows around the August period, Nate would accuse Stoess of stealing merch or money, though it has been stated from multiple sources that stickers and other merch items would just be handed out either by Robbie or Nate without any regard of current inventory or financial dives unless convenient for them, making many last-minute exceptions or rule changes depending on how much money, making many last-minute exceptions or rule changes depending on how much they gave away or just wanted to pin the blame on somebody else, allegedly. And even with all the alleged money given to the band, The amount of time he put towards learning the songs and recording and just doing everything he could to just do right by this band. Efforts towards music that the band slightly aided him in, but didn't really give him any kind of consideration on what he wanted to learn or how he wanted to play. The many shows he showed up to, the amount of neglect he faced, witnessing the amount of discriminatory remarks from band members, either racially or anti-LGBTQ, and so many other challenges put in front of him by his own bandmates. Nate would still later go on to fire him from the band, not give him any kind of fair send-off like they did Rob on any social medias, rather if it was theirs or the band page, until Stoess eventually did it on his own band page, but even after that, nothing was said about him. And to add a cherry on the top with their recent releases Hero Arise and Voyage Unknown, tracks that Stoess not only paid for session time with, the $503.50 that the studio guy was charging to even have these guys in the studio and record these songs. Stoess is not even credited in any of these songs, though these are clearly his bass parts and his bass playing, and this kind of makes you think, so did Exvamon keep the bass parts, but the moment after they kicked him out, because around the time they kicked him out is when he got everything kind of paid off a little bit when it came to the recordings and a bunch of other things. So before you released this, did you purposely keep the parts but did not type any of the information on, again, like the proper credit towards Stoess and maybe other details? Did you just purposely just remove him completely, even though he gave you guys money for the studio time and he put in the time to, you know, get the bass parts in? Or did you just replace the parts with like a shitty programmed bass, or had the studio guy track it, or you guys just retract the stuff just so you could remove him completely for something he did contribute financially for in the end? And for a reminder, these are the same people who would openly lie about why they kicked out Stoess in comments that they would later delete, or in private discussions with a variety of people asking about what exactly happened to Stoess. Again, they allegedly openly claimed that he was just not committed enough in the band and could not sell enough tickets, though the main reason allegedly being confirmed by members of the bands themselves in different conversations, saying that it was mainly for financial reasons rather than his commitment or current skills, because they have admitted themselves that he was 100% committed and he was trying his best with the little that they gave him, but only kicked him out because he was too broke and couldn't pay off these monthly payment plans. Being told that moving to Gwynplaine was probably a better fit for him, which could definitely mean a lot of things, both in the good and bad, due to alleged evidence of Nate and other bandwagoning members from other bands, or even in this band, talking trash about our aesthetic, our sound, and how we decorate venues that we play at. Even though whenever I asked them personally how they thought about these shows and how we looked and how we sound, they were just telling us how much they loved us and how we treat them well and yada yada yada. And no matter how you look at it, in the end, allegedly, again, Stoess, after all of the hard work and struggles that he was facing, he was still kicked out, not given any kind of send-off like Rob. Rob has a straight up post on that page still about his departure of the band, but the last photo that you will see of Stoess on that band page is literally his bass headstock. Like, he's not even in the image. That's just him. And again, you have to kind of place a photo, and there's a process with posting stuff like this. Rather, if you're texting the comments or picking a thumbnail or whatever, you have to consciously choose, like, whether to include this guy or not, and you chose not to. And by you chose not to, I mean Nate chose not to. I will at least add on a good note that Stoess was allegedly given back some of the money that he paid previously for an upcoming show that they were going to do before they kicked him out, but that still doesn't excuse the fact they kicked him out because of the little amount of money that he can give the band. Now, after this series of events and Stoess allegedly coming to me before making the personal announcement of that he was out of Exvamon and what happened, and just like, again, what's going on in his life right now, before he even made that post on his departure on his own story, I would then later go on to ask him if he wanted to audition for my band Gwynplaine, and to see if he wanted to join us before taking any other offers from any other bands that were reaching out to him at the time. Now, I will like to add that he was still very vulnerable and heartbroken after everything that happened to him, so I gave him a lot of time to think about it and see if this was something he wanted, because he spent most of his band life being told what to do, where to go, how to do it, and just, again, like, without any regard for his wants or consent. So I wasn't going to do the same for him. I was like, you got to choose whether you think you would be a fit for this band. Now, maybe a few days later, he would end up agreeing, so I would go out of my own merit to record bass tutorial videos and everything that he can learn within the next 3 months before he eventually did his audition, which if I wanted to let you guys know, he kicked ass on that audition. He honestly surpassed my expectations, like, because these bass parts themselves are not easy, and they're a lot harder than the guitar parts are, and very technical and require a lot of endurance, focus, and technique. And he was able to show that he could do that with, again, just the right amount of attention, the right environment, and just the right amount of basic support you should be getting from bands. And then all of a sudden his playing went from here all the way up to here, and I'm very proud of you. And I'm also very proud to not only be referred to you as the Coates, your friend, but also a bass brother, because again, I love you, dude. Now, around this period where Stoess became integrated into my band, and even a little bit of time before, I was keeping an even closer eye on Exvamon, how they would move forward, and again, allegedly inform many others of, again, like why Stoess was even out of the band, and just inform myself of any other misdeeds that they might be doing, because I'm seeing a cycle here, getting into my own form of gardening and placing many plants around them, and just so I can get any kind of information that might be within the light on Exvamon. And a lot of it would just end up finding its way to me on my porch, like a paperboy delivered it to me. Like, I wasn't even looking for it, but then it would come to me in the alleged form of just a screenshot, or just some just accounts, and just a bunch of other things. And I would gather all the alleged evidence into physical notes, documents, and just for whatever, if I wanted to go down that route of, again, just calling them out on their shit. But since I didn't have any real justifiable reason to go with that contingency until the, you know, Monsters of Metal show happened and everything, and I didn't want to go this route in the first place, like just out and about, because I was thinking about what would be best for Stoess at the moment. I was like, I'm not gonna bring you into tea. That's your drama. Again, this is your information. This is your story. I'm not gonna come out with it on my own merit. I'll just keep it to myself, you know? But like I said, I also had a lot of things going on with me, band-wise, work-wise. Nothing bad, but I was just busy with my own stuff and just couldn't commit to something like that. And for a brief moment, I straight up just put my differences aside with Exvamon, and even going so far as to being like, hey, I heard you guys are doing a show here in Fresno at Strummers, and I want to get audio recorded, I want to get videos, I want to practice my video editing on you guys. I'm not going to charge anything, and I also want to get some cool interviews down, some really good silly stuff, you know? And again, I recently got this fancy microphone you see right here, and like I wanted to like test it out and everything so I can know how to use it for when my band decides to go off and do stuff, which is very soon. And another reason why I wanted to go out there is because, again, I wanted to like shake hands with homies and people that don't usually get to see me, and again, just be more associated and familiar with the local music scene. So on the day of the show, I would be Amtrakking out to Fresno. I would contact Hunter and certain others through DM saying, hey, I'm gonna be coming around this time. I'm gonna try to show up around load up time, because if I can just help you guys load up and that will give me entry into the spot, I was still gonna be paying the $15 entry in, or how much it was at the time. I was still gonna be paying it. I'm not trying to get freebies. Just let me help my boys and let me be there for sound check so I can, again, adjust the audio levels and everything with this mic. Now, me personally, I showed up a little bit later than I wanted to, just because of the time my Amtrak landed in Fresno, and I ended up meeting a cool buddy, and we were just walking the same direction, so I was just enjoying the company. And I would get to the venue around maybe like 40 minutes before those doors open, and one of the bands was already sound checking. I asked the venue if they could go in the back and see if Exvamon were expecting me, or if I can get in early. Again, I still offered to pay the entry fee, no dollar less, no dollar more. And I even offered saying, hey, if this is not the kind of thing you do, because again, I know how things run, again, you can just tell me to go back in line and I'll wait. It's all good. Like, no harm feelings or nothing. And so they would send somebody in the back, and then they would come back to me saying, yeah, nobody was expecting you or anything. And I would later text Hunter personally saying, hey, they apparently said you guys don't know me, even though I literally have an Evil Wizard cover on you. I'm literally on your front page around this time. Like, you know, like they didn't see that. They didn't do research and been like, oh, that's a really cool, well-made cover, you know? Hunter would then go on to later tell me, he was like, oh, no one ever showed up in the back to even talk to any of us or anybody. So, like, you know, it is what it was, and I wasn't upset in the end. There was no bad blood. Now, when I got inside of the venue, again, there's people still flooding in. I saw Nate by the bar, just hanging out and talking with fans. I dapped up Hunter. I was talking with all the boys, catching up and everything, and I eventually got to talk to Nate and, you know, tell him about my experience with the front and what I'm here for and everything, and if Hunter told you guys everything. And he was relatively familiar on why I was there and what I was going to be doing, and the interview that I wanted to get with him later, we were talking all that kind of stuff. Now, here are the moments I believe I hurt Nate's feelings, and which led him to do the crazy shit that he would do later on. So on the release of Voyage Unknown, before that show was to go down, I listened to it on many different devices. I listened to it on headphones, on my studio monitors, on other speakers that I can get a hold of, rather if it was car or portable. I listened to him on just about everything, and I told him on the text on the Exvamon page, which he still did not open or give an even chance to read, I gave him the review saying, honestly, the song by itself, because I've heard you guys live and I know what your guys' sounds and vibes and artistic direction is about, I think the song itself, like concept wise and what you have written down right now, could have been an easy 8.5, if not a solid 9, depending on the direction you go with it, with layering and everything. But I felt like the production on it just did not do the song any favors, and again, just how you guys thought how to go about it, you know, creatively. Because for a dude whose last name is Swanson, bro, his mixes got like no meat to it. The guitars were just too quiet and weren't powerful enough to be like associated with the genre power metal. I told Nate that, again, the bass was pretty much non-existent. I know they were Stoess's parts, and I told him about that, and he even confirmed to me, yeah, they were Stoess's parts. And again, with how good he was playing at the time and everything, and how new to bass he was, obviously it's not gonna be like the best thing, and that's totally fine, you know. But like I said, the bass was like whatever. The drums were way too triggered and processed and loud. And again, like I know like Nate can play these parts and stuff in his sleep and everything, but like not only did it lack dynamics and it was just too loud for how quiet everything else was aside from the vocals, he recorded this with a real kit and everything, but like still decided to blend more of the triggered sounds and the actual raw kit sounds. And I really thought that was kind of like not good for the overall sound for that everyone was trying to go for. The vocals by far were probably the best thing handled, but like overall, like it wasn't a bad song and a bad mix, but they could have definitely filled up a lot of crevices and stuff on these songs. And so I told him it was an 8 out of 10, and I just gave him criticism, like not only on what I didn't like and what I liked, but also how to fix it and how to go better and how to think outside the box a little bit. Now mind you, these guys paid about $503.50 per track. So imagine spending all that time and money only to be told that your track is kind of mid, you know? And you know, he was trying to defend it, and I can tell his feelings got a little bit hurt. And like when I told Hunter about my critiques and everything, he really appreciated what I had to say, and he didn't disagree with anything I had to say. He was just like, I'll take a lot of what you're saying into considerations, because in our own previous talks and discussions before these events and everything, like I would give him advice on, again, how to approach being a guitar teacher, or again, just like any kind of advice or anything on how I write, how I come up with the guitar parts I do and all that kind of stuff. And I would give him all that lore, all that information and wisdom, and he would always thank me for it. But whenever I tried to take the same information word from word back to Nate, like he would just kind of just get super defensive and insecure and just weird about it. And so after that, I was trying to talk with all the other bands and everything. I got an interview in with one band, and so far it was a relatively good night. So quick shout out real quick to Permutations, who were the only band to take initiative for me to get a full band interview with. It's on my page still. I would recommend you check them out and support them. Good people, good band, great music. Currently in the process of recording their own stuff right now, and just shout out to them. But it still was crazy that Exvamon were doing this recent show that was up in January of this year with bands that allegedly they would talk a lot of garbage on behind the scenes and did not really look up to, and more so just looked kind of down on them behind the scenes, rather if it was in little remarks, rumors and all that kind of stuff. Again, I may or may not allegedly have DMs and stuff confirming this or not. Now during this show too, because this event is gonna lead into like the main event of why this is all going down. So while I was up in the front stage, Jolynn, Nate's girlfriend, was right next to me. She was also taking videos and stuff. Now for context, again, playing 2 shows with Exvamon previously. Now again, Jolynn is somebody who I've done business with multiple times at the other 2 shows that I did with Exvamon at Shallow End. She would help Nate load in drums, load in amplifiers, load in just anything, help build up the kit, and just, you know, get great videos and just overall be a really good and awesome asset to the band. And again, me and her have shooken hands multiple times. You know, we've had our side conversations and our little girl talk. It's like, you know, we were cool. And so at this show, what I noticed was a lot of the girlfriends of Exvamon, like, and again, this is something I'm just gonna be calling out in general. It's like, if we've met at least once, or I'm hanging out with your boys and I'm cool with your boys, like, you're free to just hit me up and say hi or ask what's up or talk about the silly things you be up to. We're all people in the end of the day in a social gathering gathering spot, you know, like talk to people. Don't act like, you know, you're just luggage to these bands, or you're only here because you're dating the band. And certainly I don't like it where things are at the point where if a girl shows up to a show, they're eventually like, you know, going to be asked, oh, which of the band members are you dating or banging, you know? Like, I think that's messed up. So when I was talking with Jolynn while we were in the front stage recording the same fucking stuff, I was talking to her and I said on my text, because I pulled up my note and I typed up a little message stating, hey, I just want to let you know that I appreciate everything you do with this band, rather if it's how you make Nate personally happy in your relationship, or all the hard work you put into like coming to these shows, loading in, loading out, doing heavy lifting, being in the front line of the Eagle's Nest while everyone else is in the back enjoying the show. You know, you're doing all these things, and I appreciate what you bring to this band. And I consider you the 5th member personally, like the secret 5th member that doesn't play an instrument but has a role. You know what I mean? I see you as a person, and whenever you see me in these shows or like in a grocery store or whatever, like don't act like a stranger with me, bro. Like, we're friends. I know like little things about you, and like, you know, just hit me up, holler at your boy, you know? And like, you know, we gave each other a thumbs up, and then I went my different direction to record what was, you know, which would then end up being in the Permutations Exvamon cover. Now later on in the day, we would all meet up at a Raising Cane's to eat some mid-ass chicken. Now prior to this, Mama Jinx was the only one to show concern or even like remotely try to offer me a lift. Every other band's cars were allegedly full and they had no room for me, so you know, they just went out their way, and Mama Jinx was like, do you want to get an Uber, or do you want, it's like, no, I'll find my own ways. And then I ended up purchasing my own Uber, and she was very pleased that I was able to make it. But while I was there talking with all the bands, talking with a bunch of music nerds, you know, talking about our own stuff, what we got going on, how we pick everything, here's another conversation that I think ticked off Nate, because before this conversation everything was cool with me and everyone. Me and Jolynn were talking about how to properly make oats and how peak overnight oats are. Nate would ask me the question what it's like to go from bass player to guitar player for me, and how that changes things from like, you know, just the dynamics in the band and like how it benefits everybody. And I told him exactly that I don't feel like anything really changed, because I was a guitar player first before I became a bass player, and like I just happened to be pretty good at both. And so just the change itself isn't like too much different when it comes to like, oh, how the music's going to be written. Sure, I have more control over the guitar parts and more input of what goes down instrumentally, because again, I'm experienced with both guitar and bass. But the main reason of doing it was because of how easier it would be to find like a decent bass player, because I've always said this multiple times to everybody. It's far easier to find someone who's decent at their instrument and it's just overall a good vibe. And again, with enough practice, anyone can improve and be better, but it's easier to find that a person who is okay at their instrument but a really good person, rather to find someone who's really good at their instrument but are a complete fucking asshole. And after I said that, his entire face demeanor changed, and like he just kind of cut me off and tried to like talk to somebody else like right across from him. And like I had to continue that conversation with Jolynn because she was still like listening to what I was having to say. And like that was crazy, because most of the time, like the kind of interactions you will have with Nate, and this is how you know he's just not remotely interested or caring about what he wants to say to you, he'll do stuff like this. Oh yeah. Fuck, I dropped my shades. Oh, you dropped your shades? Oh yeah, you dropped your shades, yeah. Oh yeah, and just fucking mogging, you know? Yeah, so after that whole thing, Nate was just kind of seemingly trying to just get out of my vicinity as fast as possible, and I ended up having to do a short interview that ended up getting corrupted later with Doug and Jonah, who stayed for a minute before my phone died, and then, you know, they went home and I had to walk around Fresno to do all my crazy stuff. If you know, you know. Now, days after this, if not like literally a day or two after this show, I would reach out to Permutations and members of Exvamon to see if they could send me whatever photos they got to add into what I had, so I can just add more character and personality, and just again more angles. It makes it more lively, you know. And I would also add the audio from these phones and kind of mix it to the best of I can, just to give the sound a little bit more texture and more atmosphere than what it originally had just off the one camera or one microphone. Now, Permutation was really quick to send me their footage and everything, really good footage. It's still being used on that video. I would reach out to Nate. Now, that dude would not open my messages. He didn't open my previous messages that I sent before that, letting him know about me kind of like either showing up to the show pretty soon, or even just like whatever side conversations we had at the moment. Like, he just didn't open it. Now, for the next couple of days, as I was trying trying to reach out to Nate. I was just simply asking him, I was like, hey, could you give me that GoPro drum cam footage you have on your side to add to this video, or just whatever else you might have, just so I can make you all look good and everything. I will be having a deadline with this because I do have my own work and other videos and all this stuff, you know, coming up, and like these videos and everything take up a lot of storage on my phone and my computer and my Google space. So I would like to receive emails. So if you could get this to me as fast as possible so I can be done and just be out with it, that would be amazing. But even with all of that, on all my efforts to reach out to him personally, he never replied to me back. I would later go on to talking to Hunter to see if he had any footage or if he can talk to Nate. And he showed me footage that I really couldn't use, but he said he would reach out to Nate. And so I waited. A day later maybe passes, and I was just like, okay, so none of them are getting back to me, and I need to get this stuff done. And I thought in my head instantly after that, I was like, oh, you know who I was literally just talking to, acknowledging as a person and letting them know about their hard works and efforts on video recording? Jolin. And not only could I possibly get, you know, the drum cam footage from Nate, because nowadays it seems like you can't talk or reach out to a homie unless you're fucking talking to the critter, getting him that poo-tang pie, you know what I'm talking about? Like, not only could she get a hold of Nate, but she can also give me all of the footage that she had from all of that night, because she was literally up in the front with the eagle's nest with me, getting all this footage and angles and stuff on a better quality camera, and just, you know, overall better, you know, audio coming from her phone. And so I reach out to her, complete business proposal. I've never texted her beforehand or anything, and I was just simply asking, hey, could you either get a hold of your man, or could you send me the footage you have? I'm promoting you personally to the Exvamon content manager, and just somebody I can just hit up if I ever work with these guys again, because I also wanted to do a couple of shows with them out of town when me and my band were doing it, and like she was one of my elite employees, and you know, just being fun with it, you know, like I wasn't asking her, oh, let's talk later or grab a coffee or going anywhere out of my boundaries. I was just simply asking for business and just videos. She didn't have to reply to me with words or anything. Nate could have just texted me back right after that, and we would have all been good. But instead, minutes after me sending this message, I get blocked by both Nate and Jolin and the Exvamon account, and just like that was it. Like they did not like talk to me or anything. And so when I reached out to Hunter, who would reply to me days later, he told me that apparently Nate felt a certain way with me calling Jolin, the fifth member of the band, saying that I was acting pretty vague, and apparently crossed a boundary where like again, like when I texted her, he didn't know how to feel about that, so he just, instead of just talking to me about it or calling me out or again drawing the line with the boundary, you know, he didn't do any of that. And a lot of this would have been so much more avoidable if he would have just reached out to me and just been like, either, hey, I understand you're trying to get this video out and trying to get stuff for me, and I'm a little flaky right now because I'm answering a bunch of DMs and got a bunch of other things going on in my life, and that's my bad, but don't bring my girl into this, you know. I don't want her getting involved in a, you know, business affairs with the band, because, you know, she either has her stuff going on with her life, or maybe it's like, you know, again, she doesn't have the time to be replying to such malarkey. If you could just not do that again, we'd be cool. I'll get you the video in a minute, or literally just anything. He could have just yelled at me or told me to fuck off or anything, and like I would have been okay with it, because at least that would have been better than just blocking me, not even reading my messages, and then leaving me to my thoughts thinking, why would you do that? Even though I know exactly why. Like I saw the red flags still when I was at that show, but I didn't say or do anything because I was just trying to be happy and have a good time and have fun with the bros and everything. But instead, you're continuing ongoing stuff of just being a shitty dude, doing these shitty things, talking to people and talking about people poorly, and just all this other like crazy ass shit that shouldn't be happening, but has been happening ever since, again, when Rob was in the band, all the way back 2019, 2020. It's just all this line of shit that just never seemed to let up and kind of just showed itself out of public, rather if it's your dad saying hard R's, or you allowing your first bass player to do all this crazy shit and giving him a send-off, and even giving him the courtesy of hiding all of this crazy information, like, you know, from people, and lying about exactly why you kicked him out and protecting a predator, and even to how you fucking treated and discredited Stoess for the amount of work that and money that he put into the band. You know what I mean? And like, and I'm noticing too how this shitty behavior is passing along all of you, and I do not want that for like my boys like Hunter, Doug, and Jonah. And I'm seeing it kind of rub off on Jonah a little bit, because after Stoess got kicked out, and apparently these two were like very close and talky and buddy and stuff at these shows when dude was with Jinx and everything. After he got kicked out, dude, he would never reach out to Stoess, and whenever Stoess would reach out to him, he would just leave him on red. And again, and like allegedly, like, and that's just kind of like bullshit. That shouldn't even be happening, but it is, and it doesn't feel like this group is much of a band or even much of a business. It's just a circle of toxicity that is just not cool. And this situation has me much more heartbroken than I am mad, because again, I thought these dudes were my friends. Nobody else saw all the other bullshit that was going on with them in person, and I had overall good experiences. But when you hear about all the shit going on behind the scenes and things that were said in private conversations or just out in the open, it's so disappointing and upsetting, dude. Like, I didn't even know how to feel about it when it first happened to me. And that's the reason all of this is happening, is because Nate refused to just talk to me one-on-one. I posted a story basically calling him out, saying, hey, unblock me and talk to me so we can just handle everything I'm saying right now one-on-one and then be done with it, you know what I mean? And just issue out your apologies and promise me you'll do better, because I want the best for you in the end. You were my friend. I was gonna invite you to barbecues. I wanted to do more collabs with you. I've done everything in my power to get you involved and just be involved with my scene and other musicians, but apparently that's not what you wanted or saw of me. You saw me more as a fan and an asset than you saw me as a friend and potential respectable business partner. And honestly, that's just so disappointing. And the only time I want to see you right now in person, face to face, is either in an octagon or a ring with your signature on a certain consent form. Like, that's it. That's all I want to really hear or see from you at this point. The time for talking is done, as of shown right now with all this evidence and everything. So I want everyone to really just ask themselves again, do you believe everything I'm telling you is true? Did you have similar experiences with this band, rather if it was their dad, Robbie, or anything, rather if they were in the band throughout their time or even sometime in school? Because I'm hearing stuff that it even dated further back than that. Their assholery, you know? And so, like, I think that's pretty much all I want to say. And like, you do with that information you want to do, you know what I mean? So yeah, later.